Tháng 8. More terrifying places on earth you never knew existed. There are places on earth where death does not arrive with a warning. It does not roar like a predator. It does not shake the ground. It does not appear as a wall of fire moving toward you. Sometimes death is invisible. It gathers quietly at the bottom of a lake. It settles inside a peaceful valley. It waits beneath green forests where unexploded weapons have remained hidden for more than a century. And sometimes it surrounds the most beautiful objects ever created by nature. Massive crystals, turquoise lakes, brilliant yellow mountains, landscapes painted in colors so vivid that they appear unreal. But beauty and safety are not the same thing. Tonight, we will travel beyond the famous haunted castles and abandoned cities. We will enter places that many people have never heard of. A volcanic valley where animals suddenly fall dead. An underground crystal palace that the human body can survive for only a few minutes. An island in the Venetian lagoon shaped by quarantine, disease, and centuries of disturbing legends. And a silent African lake that once released an invisible cloud over sleeping villages. Some stories in this episode are supported by science and historical records. Others come from folklore, local traditions, or rumors that have grown over generations. Whenever the evidence is uncertain, we will say so. Because these places do not need invented monsters. The truth is already frightening enough. Turn down the lights, put on your headphones, and take one final look at the familiar world around you. Because we are about to travel beyond the last map. These are 8 more terrifying places on Earth you probably never knew existed. Number 8. Dalon, the landscape that looks alive. In the far north of Ethiopia lies a landscape that appears to have been painted by something other than nature. Pools of yellow, green, orange, and red spread across a vast salt-covered plain. Mineral towers rise from the ground like melted sculptures. Acidic water bubbles beneath thin crusts. Steam escapes from cracks. The air carries the smell of sulfur. And beneath the surface, heat from the earth continues transforming the land. This is Dalol. Located in the Danakil Depression, Dalol is one of the strangest hydrothermal environments on the planet. Parts of the region lie more than 100 meters below sea level. The landscape has been shaped by volcanic activity, enormous salt deposits, underground heat, and highly concentrated mineral-rich fluids. From a distance, Dalol can appear beautiful. Its colors are extraordinary. Bright yellow sulfur deposits surround green pools. Iron-rich minerals create deep red and brown surfaces. Salt formations rise like frozen waves. But the same chemistry that produces this beauty also creates a hostile environment. Some pools are extremely acidic. Others contain extraordinary concentrations of salt. Hot fluids rise from underground and create surfaces that may look solid but can be thin, unstable, and dangerous. The landscape changes constantly. A spring may become blocked by mineral deposits. A new vent may open nearby. A colorful pool may disappear and be replaced by another. Dallol does not feel like a finished landscape. It feels as though the planet is still building it. Scientists have studied the area because it may help them understand the limits of life. Some nearby extreme environments contain microorganisms adapted to heat, salt, and acidity. However, studies have also suggested that certain combinations of extreme acidity, temperature, and salinity may create conditions where life cannot survive. This makes Dallol more than a beautiful geological site. It is a natural laboratory, a place where scientists can ask one of the most important questions imaginable. How extreme can an environment become before life is no longer possible? But imagine arriving there without understanding the danger. The sun hangs directly above you. There is almost no shade. Heat rises from the ground. Every breath feels dry and heavy. In front of you is a brilliant green pool surrounded by yellow minerals. It looks like something from another world. You move closer. The surface is perfectly still. There are no warning barriers, no fences, no signs explaining where it is safe to walk. The ground beneath your boots changes from hard salt to a thin mineral crust. You hear a soft cracking sound. Then the surface shifts. A small section collapses only a few steps away. Beneath it is hot, acidic liquid. The danger at Dallol is not hidden by darkness. It exists in full daylight. It is visible in every color. And yet, those colors can make the landscape appear inviting. That is what makes it so deceptive. Human beings are naturally attracted to unusual beauty. We move closer. We take photographs. We want to touch the surface. But Dallol was not created for human comfort. It is a place of heat, salt, acid, gas, and unstable ground. Even the air can become dangerous near active vents. There is another reason Dallol feels unsettling. It resembles descriptions of distant planets, a place with no forests, no rivers, no permanent buildings, only mineral plains stretching toward a wide horizon. If a spacecraft sent back images from another world, we might expect them to look like this. But Dallol is not millions of kilometers away. It is here, on Earth. A reminder that our own planet still contains environments so extreme that they challenge the meaning of the word habitable. As the sun begins to set, the colors slowly darken. The yellow becomes brown. The green pools become black mirrors. Steam continues rising from the ground. There are no streetlights, no nearby cities, only silence, mineral towers, and the sound of the earth breathing beneath your feet. Dallol is terrifying because it does not appear dead. It bubbles. It changes. It releases heat. It creates new shapes. The entire landscape looks alive. But in some of its most extreme pools, the conditions may be too hostile for life itself. Number 7. Kawah Ijen, the volcano of blue fire. On the island of Java in Indonesia, workers climb a volcano while most of the world is still asleep. They carry baskets, metal tools, cloths to cover their mouths, and sometimes simple masks that offer only limited protection against the gases surrounding them. Their destination is the crater of Kawah Ijen. During the day, the volcano is famous for its turquoise crater lake. At night, it becomes something far more disturbing. Electric blue flames appear to move across the ground. They burn beside yellow sulfur deposits. They flow down the volcanic rock like liquid fire. Photographs of Kawah Ijen often describe this phenomenon as blue lava. But the blue light is not lava. Sulfur-rich gases escape from cracks at high temperatures. When these gases contact oxygen and ignite, they produce brilliant blue flames. Some of the burning material can condense into liquid sulfur and continue moving across the ground while still aflame. In darkness, the result appears supernatural. Blue fire beneath a black sky. Yellow sulfur illuminated around it. Smoke drifting across the crater. But as strange as the flames appear, they are only one part of the danger. Inside the crater lies a highly acidic lake, almost 1 kilometer wide. Its turquoise color creates a powerful contrast with the gray volcanic walls. From a distance, it looks peaceful, beautiful, almost inviting. But this is not water where anyone should swim. The lake is filled with volcanic chemicals and receives material from active hydrothermal systems beneath the volcano. Gases can gather around the crater. The wind may suddenly push toxic fumes towards visitors and workers. Visibility can disappear within seconds. Eyes begin to burn. Breathing becomes painful. Disorientation follows. Yet people have worked inside this environment for generations. Sulfur miners descend towards the crater floor, break solid sulfur into pieces, load it into baskets, and carry the weight up steep volcanic paths. The work is physically exhausting. The air is dangerous. The ground is uneven, and the bright yellow sulfur that looks beautiful in photographs becomes part of a brutal daily routine. Imagine beginning the climb before midnight. The only light comes from your headlamp. The path rises sharply through darkness. Around you, other figures move quietly upward. There is no moon. Below, villages have disappeared into the night. After hours of climbing, you reach the crater rim. A cold wind pushes against your jacket. Then you begin descending. The smell becomes stronger. Sulfur enters your nose and throat. Far below, the first blue flames appear. At first, they look small, almost gentle. But as you move closer, you realize that they are spreading across the rocks. Smoke changes direction. A cloud moves towards you. Your guide shouts for everyone to turn away. Within seconds, the crater vanishes. There is only white gas illuminated by headlamps. You try to breathe through your mask. Your eyes fill with tears. The path is narrow. One side rises into volcanic rock. The other disappears into darkness. You cannot see the lake. You cannot see the people in front of you. You can only hear coughing. This is the danger that photographs cannot fully communicate. A camera captures blue fire. It does not capture the pain in your lungs. It does not show the confusion created when gas surrounds you. It does not show how quickly a beautiful experience can become a fight for clean air. Kawa-Ijen is also an active volcanic system. The crater has experienced steam-driven explosions and periods of unrest. In volcanic environments, conditions can change. Gas levels rise. Earthquakes occur. Water temperature changes. What appeared safe yesterday may become dangerous tomorrow. But people continue to climb. Scientists arrive to study the volcano. Travelers arrive to witness the blue flames. Miners arrive because this is how they support themselves and their families. Each group sees a different Kawa-Ijen. For scientists, it is an active geological system. For travelers, it is one of the most unusual landscapes on Earth. For miners, it is a workplace. And for the volcano itself, human beings are almost irrelevant. The gases continue escaping. The acidic lake remains inside the crater. Sulfur continues forming. The blue flames continue burning whenever the conditions are right. Long after the visitors have returned to their hotels, the workers remain on the mountain. Their baskets grow heavy. Their backs bend beneath the weight, and the blue fire burns beside them in the darkness. Number 6. Nika, the crystal cave that human beings cannot survive. Deep beneath the desert of Chihuahua, Mexico, miners discovered a chamber that seemed impossible. Inside were enormous white crystals. Some were longer than a bus. They crossed the cave in every direction. They rose from the floor, emerged from the walls, and formed bridges above dark gaps. The chamber looked like an underground palace created for giants. This is the Cave of the Crystals at Nika. It is one of the most beautiful natural spaces ever discovered. And without specialized protection, it is also one of the most physically hostile. The cave lies hundreds of meters underground and is connected to the Nika mining complex. It was discovered in the year Haining, after mining operations lowered the underground water level and opened access to previously flooded chambers. For countless years, mineral-rich water had remained inside the cave. The temperature stayed remarkably stable. Under these conditions, gypsum crystals grew slowly, very slowly. Generation after generation passed on the surface while the crystals continued forming underground. Eventually, they reach extraordinary sizes. Some measure more than 11 meters in length. A person standing beside them appeared almost insignificant. When photographs were first released, many people believed the images were digitally created. The crystals were too large, too clean, too perfectly arranged. They looked like objects from a science fiction film. But the photographs were real. What they did not show was the heat. When the chamber was accessible, temperatures could reach approximately 58 degrees Celsius. Humidity approached 100%. Under ordinary hot conditions, sweat evaporates from the skin and helps cool the body. Inside Naika, the air was so humid that sweat could not evaporate effectively. The body continued heating. Breathing became difficult. Strength disappeared. Without specialized cooling equipment, a person could remain inside for only a short period before facing severe heat illness. The beauty of the cave created a deadly temptation. Every direction offered something extraordinary. A crystal large enough to walk across. A transparent surface holding tiny bubbles of ancient fluid. A narrow gap leading toward another unexplored chamber. Researchers wanted more time. Photographers wanted one more image. Explorers wanted to see what waited beyond the light. But the human body imposed a strict limit. Special suites containing cooling systems were developed to help teams work inside. Respirators supply cooler air. Even with this equipment, exploration remained difficult and dangerous. Imagine entering the chamber for the first time. The door opens. Heat immediately surrounds you. It does not feel like standing beneath a hot sun. It feels like entering the breath of an enormous machine. Your protective suit is heavy. Your boots slide against wet surfaces.
The crystals reflect your headlamp, sending light through the chamber. Every surface glows. For a moment, you forget where you are. Then, your breathing becomes faster. Water begins collecting inside your mask. Your heart rate rises. A researcher beside you points toward a massive crystal extending across the cave floor. You move closer. It is wider than your body, perfectly shaped, almost transparent. You place a gloved hand against it. The crystal feels warm. Then a warning sounds. The cooling system inside your suit is beginning to fail. You have only minutes to leave. The chamber entrance is not far away, but every movement feels slower. Your legs are heavy. The air inside your mask grows warmer. The beautiful crystals now appear like barriers. You must climb around them, move beneath them, avoid falling into spaces between them. The cave has not changed, but your body has. That is what makes Nika so terrifying.
There is no predator, no curse, no invisible spirit following you through the chamber. The cave simply exists at a temperature and humidity that the human body cannot tolerate for long. It does not attack, it waits. And the longer you remain, the weaker you become. After mining operations changed, groundwater was allowed to return to parts of the underground system. The famous chamber was flooded again, protecting the crystals from air exposure and returning them to the conditions in which they had grown. Today, access is extraordinarily limited or impossible through the former routes. The Crystal Palace has returned to darkness. Water surrounds the giant structures. No headlamps reflect from their surfaces. No footsteps cross the chamber. The crystals remain where they have been for thousands of years, growing too slowly for the human eye to observe, hidden beneath the desert, waiting in a place so beautiful that people risked their lives just to stand inside it. Number 5. Poveglia, the island of quarantine. Venice is famous for crowded canals, elegant buildings, music, art, and millions of visitors. But away from the busiest streets, the Venetian lagoon contains islands with very different histories. One of them is Poveglia. Trees cover much of the island. Abandoned buildings stand behind thick vegetation. Windows have disappeared. Roofs have collapsed. A tall bell tower rises above the ruins, visible from boats passing through the lagoon. For decades, Poveglia has been described as one of the most haunted islands in the world. The truth is more complicated and far more interesting. Poveglia has been inhabited, abandoned, fortified, used for agriculture, and transformed into a quarantine station during different periods of its history. Beginning in the late 18th century, Venetian health authorities used the island to isolate ships, goods, and people believed to present a risk of disease. At a time when plague and other epidemics could destroy entire communities, quarantine islands became part of the effort to protect Venice. Ships arriving from dangerous regions could be stopped. Passengers showing symptoms could be separated from the population. Goods could be examined or disinfected. To modern travelers, quarantine may sound inconvenient. In earlier centuries, it could mean being taken to an island without knowing whether you would ever leave. Poveglia became associated with illness and isolation. People died there. Bodies were buried or cremated. However, sensational stories claiming that hundreds of thousands of plague victims died on the island are not supported by strong historical evidence. Poveglia was one of several locations used by Venice during periods of disease. Its reputation grew far beyond the available records. During the 20th century, buildings on the island were used as a hospital and long-term care institution. Popular ghost stories later transformed this facility into a secret psychiatric asylum controlled by a cruel doctor. According to the legend, the doctor conducted terrible experiments on patients. He eventually became haunted by their spirits, climbed the bell tower, and fell to his death. There is no reliable historical evidence proving this story. The doctor may never have existed, the experiments may be an invention, and the bell tower may have been added to the story simply because it creates a perfect image for horror. But legends survive because they attach themselves to real places. Poveglia has real abandoned hospital rooms, real corridors, real medical buildings, real burial history. When people see those ruins, imagination fills the empty spaces. Imagine approaching the island by boat on a cold morning. Fog hangs above the lagoon. Venice has disappeared behind you. The boat slows beside an old landing area. Branches move in the wind. The bell tower rises beyond the trees. You step onto the island. There are no crowds, no restaurants, no souvenir shops. Only overgrown paths and damaged buildings. Inside one structure, plaster has fallen from the walls. A rusted bed frame lies beneath a broken window. Roots have entered the room. Paint hangs from the ceiling in long strips. You walk into a corridor. Your footsteps echo. At the far end is a doorway filled with darkness. Then you hear something above you. A heavy movement. Dust falls from the ceiling. You stop. The sound comes again. It could be part of the structure collapsing. It could be an animal. It could be the wind pushing a loose object across the floor. There are many ordinary explanations, but ordinary explanations do not immediately calm the human mind. When we enter abandoned medical buildings, we bring stories with us. We imagine suffering, fear, confusion, people calling for help. The architecture itself begins influencing what we believe we hear. For many years, access to Poveglia was restricted and its abandoned structures were unsafe. More recently, Venetian residents involved with the Poveglia per Tutti organization have worked to protect the island and move it toward community and public use. Its future may not be as a forbidden, haunted island. It may become a place of nature, history, and preservation. That transformation is important because Poveglia should not be remembered only through exaggerated ghost stories. Its history represents something real: the ancient fear of disease, the loneliness of quarantine, and the difficult choices cities made when invisible infections moved from person to person. Today, the abandoned buildings remain, The bell tower still rises over the trees. But the greatest haunting may not come from supernatural spirits. It may come from the knowledge that centuries ago, people crossed the lagoon toward this island without knowing whether they would ever see Venice again. Number 4. The Capuchin Catacombs, the dead who never left. In Palermo, Sicily, beneath a Capuchin monastery, there are corridors filled with the dead. They do not lie hidden inside sealed coffins. They stand against walls. They sit inside niches. They wear dresses, military uniforms, religious robes, suits, and children's clothing. Some have hair, some have teeth. Some still show traces of human expression. These are the Capuchin Catacombs of Palermo. The underground galleries contain approximately 2,000 skeletons and mummified bodies. The oldest remains date back several centuries. The catacombs began when the monastery's original burial space became insufficient. Monks created underground chambers and discovered that environmental conditions helped preserve some bodies naturally. Over time, preservation techniques became more deliberate. Bodies were dried, treated, dressed, and placed within the corridors. At first, the catacombs were primarily associated with members of the religious community. Later, wealthy and important families sought places there. Being displayed in the catacombs became a symbol of status. The dead were arranged into groups: men, women, professionals, priests, monks, children. Families could visit them. Clothing could be replaced. The dead remained part of the social world of the living. To a modern visitor, the practice may appear disturbing. We are accustomed to hiding dead. Bodies are placed inside coffins. Coffins are lowered into the ground. The physical reality of decay disappears from daily life. The Capuchin Catacombs remove that distance. Here, death has a face, hundreds of faces. Some bodies have lost most of their skin. Others are almost completely skeletal. Their empty eye sockets face the corridor. Their hands hang beside formal clothing. Their heads lean forward as though they have fallen asleep while standing. One of the most famous individuals in the catacombs is Rosalia Lombardo. She died in Chindisanhaimwe when she was only 2 years old. Her body was preserved using an embalming method that was unusually effective. She lies inside a glass-covered coffin. Her face remains recognizable. Her eyelashes are visible. Her hair rests around her head. She appears less like a century-old mummy and more like a child sleeping beneath a blanket. This appearance has created numerous legends. Some visitors have claimed that Rosalia opens and closes her eyes. Photographs taken under different lighting conditions seem to show changes in her expression. Researchers and caretakers have offered ordinary explanations involving light, reflections, camera angles, and the position of her eyelids. There is no evidence that the body is moving. But when people look at Rosalia, logic competes with emotion. The brain recognizes a child. The face appears peaceful. The instinctive expectation is that she might breathe, that she might wake, that her eyes might suddenly focus on the person standing beside the coffin. Imagine entering the catacombs alone. The air is cool. The corridor is narrow. Your footsteps sound too loud. On both sides, bodies stand against the walls. You try not to look directly at their faces, but each face is different. One mummy still wears a hat. Another has its mouth open. A priest's robes hang from a body that has become almost entirely skeletal. At the end of the corridor, a small figure lies inside a glass coffin. You move closer. The child appears perfectly still. Then a shadow passes across her eyes. You step backward. A cloud has moved outside. The light entering the room has changed. Nothing supernatural has happened, but your heartbeat has already accelerated. The catacombs are not a haunted attraction created for entertainment. They are a historical burial site. The people displayed there had names, families, careers, beliefs. Some chose to be preserved. Others were placed there by relatives who wanted to maintain a connection with them. The catacombs reveal how differently cultures can respond to death. For some, the body is something to bury immediately. For others, it becomes a lasting reminder, a physical presence connecting the living to previous generations. But time continues working even inside the catacombs. Skin breaks down, clothing deteriorates, dust gathers, microorganisms damage the preserved bodies. Scientists and conservators work to understand how to protect the collection without destroying its historical value. The dead appear permanent. They are not. Slowly, almost invisibly, they continue changing. One day, many of their recognizable faces may disappear. The clothing will remain for a while. Then it too will decay. The Capuchin catacombs are terrifying because they show that preservation cannot defeat time. It can only slow it down. The people in those corridors have remained above ground for centuries, but even they cannot remain forever. Number 3. The Sun Rouge, the war that refused to end. In northeastern France, there are forests that appear peaceful. Birds move between the trees. Grass grows beneath the branches. Leaves cover the ground. A visitor unfamiliar with the region might believe that nothing unusual had ever happened there. But hidden beneath the soil are artillery shells, grenades, bullets, pieces of military equipment, chemical contamination, and human remains. This is the Sun Rouge, the Red Zone. It was created after the First World War. Between Munginchincha Muibon and Munginchincha Muitam, Some of the most destructive battles in human history transformed parts of France into landscapes of mud, trenches, craters, wire, shattered trees, and bodies. Millions of artillery shells were fired. Many did not explode. Others contained poisonous chemicals. When the war ended, the danger did not end with it. Large areas were considered too damaged for agriculture or human settlement. The original restricted zone covered approximately 1,200 square kilometers, although it was later reduced as land was cleared or reclassified. Some locations remain dangerous more than a century after the fighting stopped. Every year, farmers and construction workers continue finding unexploded ammunition. The discovery is sometimes called the Iron Harvest. A rusted shell emerges from a field. A grenade appears beneath tree roots. Artillery ammunition is collected beside roads so specialized teams can remove it. The objects may look harmless, old, broken, covered in dirt, but age does not necessarily make an explosive safe. Metal corrodes. Internal components become unstable. Chemical agents can leak into the surrounding soil. Moving one object can be enough to trigger a disaster. The forest also hides evidence of the people who never returned home. Soldiers disappeared during bombardments so intense that entire landscapes were reshaped. Bodies were buried by collapsing trenches. Others were torn apart or lost beneath layers of mud. Even today, human remains are occasionally discovered. A boot, a helmet, bones, an identity tag. For a family, the First World War may suddenly become present again when a missing soldier is identified more than 100 years after his death. Imagine walking through one of these forests. The afternoon is calm. Sunlight passes through the branches. Old shell craters create depressions in the ground. At first, they resemble natural features. Then you notice that they continue in every direction. The entire forest floor has been shaped by explosions. You step over a fallen tree. Something metal is partly visible beneath the leaves. It is round, rusty, approximately the size of a large bottle. You move closer. There are no warning labels, no bright colors, only corroded metal. It could be harmless debris, or it could be an unexploded shell containing material designed to kill soldiers in Milia Chincha-Muisao. The safest decision is not to touch it, not to move it, not even to step near it. You continue walking. A sign appears between the trees. Access forbidden. Dangerous area. The path ends. Beyond the sign, the forest continues normally. There is no wall, no visible minefield. Nothing prevents you from entering except knowledge. That may be the most disturbing part of the zone rules. Nature has hidden the battlefield. Trees grow where soldiers died. Birds build nests above contaminated soil. Flowers appear around shell fragments. The landscape looks healed. But healing and forgetting are not the same thing. Beneath the vegetation, the war remains physically present. The Zone Rouge shows that human violence can outlive the people who created it. The soldiers are gone. The generals are gone. The governments that ordered the battles have changed, but the weapons remain underground, waiting for a farmer's machine, a construction worker's shovel, a child exploring the forest. Every rusted shell is a message from the past. The war ended in November of 1918, but in this forest, part of it is still waiting to explode. Number 2. Kamchatka's Valley of Death, the place where animals fall silent. The Kamchatka Peninsula in Russia contains volcanoes, glaciers, rivers, forests, geysers, and some of the wildest landscapes on Earth. It is home to brown bears, foxes, wolves, birds, and many other animals. But near the Tikpinik volcano lies a small valley where nature behaves very differently. Animals enter, some never leave. This is the Valley of Death. The valley was identified during the 1970s inside the Kronotsky Nature Reserve. Researchers and reserve workers discovered dead animals in a relatively small, low-lying area. Birds, rodents, foxes, larger animals. Some appeared to have died suddenly. There were no clear wounds, no evidence of a predator attack, no obvious disease affecting the entire region. The deaths were connected to volcanic gases escaping from the ground. Carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide can collect inside low areas, particularly when weather conditions prevent the gases from dispersing. Carbon dioxide is especially dangerous because it is invisible and odorless. It is also heavier than ordinary air. It can flow downhill and gather near the ground. A person or animal entering a concentrated layer may continue breathing normally, but instead of receiving oxygen, the body takes in carbon dioxide-rich air. Confusion begins. Weakness follows. Consciousness can disappear before the victim understands what is happening. Small animals are affected first because their heads remain close to the ground. A rodent enters the valley and collapses. A bird lands nearby and dies. Then a fox arrives, attracted by the bodies. The fox remains in the same dangerous air. It becomes another victim. Larger predators and scavengers may follow. The valley creates a deadly chain. One death attracts the next. Researchers found that the danger could change with the seasons and weather. Snow, wind, temperature, and gas flow all influence where toxic concentrations collect. The valley is not equally dangerous every moment of every day. That uncertainty makes it more frightening. Imagine approaching the area during a calm morning. The valley looks ordinary. Grass grows along the slopes. A stream moves between rocks. There are no flames, no smoke, no strange colors. Then you see a bird on the ground. It appears to be sleeping. A few meters away is another. Farther ahead lies the body of a fox. The animals show no sign of struggle. You call out. Nothing moves. You step forward. The air has no unusual smell. You take another breath. Then your head begins to feel light. You assume it is exhaustion, perhaps the altitude, perhaps dehydration. You continue walking. Your legs become weak. Your thoughts slow down. You look back toward the slope. It appears farther away than before. You try to turn around, but your balance is disappearing. The valley does not need to chase you. Gravity holds the gas in place. Every step downward takes you deeper into it. The same geological forces that create Kamchatka's hot springs, volcanoes, and geysers also release gases from beneath the surface. To humans, a beautiful volcanic region may feel like an adventure. To the Earth, it is an active chemical system. The landscape is not required to provide a warning. Today, access to sensitive areas of the reserve is controlled. Scientists continue monitoring natural processes. The Valley of Death remains an important site for understanding how volcanic gases affect animals and ecosystems. Its existence also reveals a frightening weakness shared by nearly every breathing creature. We depend on air, but we cannot see oxygen. We cannot see carbon dioxide. We trust the atmosphere around us every second of our lives. We enter rooms, walk through valleys, sleep inside houses, and assume that the next breath will keep us alive. Usually it does. In Kamchatka's Valley of Death, that assumption can become fatal. The grass moves, the river flows, the sky remains clear, and the air itself becomes the predator. Number 1. Lake Nyos. The night the lake exploded without fire. Lake Nyos lies inside a volcanic crater in Cameroon. Before Nyenchintram Tamuisau, nearby communities lived around it much as people had lived near lakes for generations. Families raised livestock. Farmers worked the land. Children worked between villages. The lake appeared calm. Its dark blue water reflected the surrounding hills. There were no waves suggesting danger, no flames, no visible volcanic eruption. But deep beneath the surface, carbon dioxide was accumulating. The gas originated from volcanic activity below the region. Under pressure, it dissolved into the cold water near the bottom of the lake. Year after year, the deep water stored more carbon dioxide. The lake became similar to a sealed bottle of carbonated liquid. As long as the layers remained stable, the gas stayed trapped. But on the night of August 21st, something changed. The exact trigger remains uncertain. A landslide, cooling rainfall, wind, or a disturbance within the lake may have caused deep water to rise. As pressure decreased, dissolved carbon dioxide began escaping. The first bubbles carried more water upward. That water released more gas. A chain reaction began. The lake experienced what scientists call a limnic eruption. An enormous quantity of carbon dioxide burst from the water, but there was no fire, no glowing lava, no black volcanic ash rising into the sky. The eruption created an invisible cloud. Carbon dioxide spread from the lake and moved downhill into surrounding valleys. Because it was denser than air, it remained close to the ground. The cloud entered villages while people were sleeping. Some victims may have heard a strange sound from the lake. Others had no warning at all. Oil lamps went out. Animals collapsed. People lost consciousness. Approximately 1,700 people died. Thousands of cattle and other animals were also killed. Entire families disappeared during a single night. Many victims were found where they had been sleeping. Others collapsed near doorways or paths. There were few signs of struggle. The cloud had removed the oxygen they needed to remain conscious. Some survivors woke hours later. They found their homes silent. Neighbors did not answer. Livestock lay dead in fields. Birds had fallen from trees. People who had been alive the previous evening were gone. Imagine waking before sunrise. Your head hurts. Your body feels weak. The room is silent. You call to your family. No one responds. You stand but immediately fall. The lamp beside you will not remain lit. Outside, the village appears unchanged. The houses are standing. There is no fire, no storm damage, no soldiers, no evidence explaining what has happened. Then you see the animals. Every one of them is lying on the ground. You walk toward the next house. The door is open. Inside, no one moves. The invisible cloud has already passed. The air is becoming safe again. But the village has been emptied of life. The Lake Nyos disaster shocked scientists around the world. A lake had killed people without flooding their homes or releasing lava. It had stored gas quietly and then released it with devastating force. researchers began studying how to prevent another event. Degassing systems were installed. Pipes reached into the deep water and allowed carbon dioxide-rich water to rise in a controlled way. As pressure decreased, gas escaped through fountains above the lake. The system gradually reduced the amount of carbon dioxide stored below. Lake Nyos is now monitored, and engineering work has significantly lowered the risk. But the lake remains connected to the volcanic system beneath it. It cannot simply be forgotten. Other deep lakes in volcanic regions may also store dissolved gases. Lake Monoun, also in Cameroon, experienced a smaller deadly gas release in Munginchincham-Tamitu. Farther away, Lake Kivu in Central Africa contains large quantities of dissolved gases and is closely studied because millions of people live around it. The lesson of Nyos reaches far beyond one lake. It shows how a peaceful landscape can contain energy that human senses cannot detect. People living near Lake Nyos did not ignore an obvious danger. They did not build homes beside an erupting volcano. They lived near quiet water. The threat had no smell, no color, no shape. At night, it moved through the valleys like fog, but unlike fog, it could not be seen. And unlike smoke, it provided no burning sensation to force people to run. It simply replaced the air. Lake Nyos is terrifying because it represents the failure of every natural warning system we depend upon. We look for smoke. We listen for explosions. We smell gas. We watch animals react. But on that night, many of the animals died first. The lamps went dark, and by the time people understood that something was wrong, they were already losing consciousness. Today, the lake is beautiful again. Green hills surround the water. Clouds reflect on its surface. People continue living in the region. Scientists monitor the gas. Pipes rise from the lake like machines keeping a sleeping creature under control. A visitor could stand on the shore and feel completely safe. Perhaps that visitor would hear birds. Perhaps they would watch the wind create small waves. Nothing about the scene would reveal what happened there. But the families who survived remember. They remember a night when darkness arrived without fire, when silence spread from house to house, when a lake released something no one could see, and by morning, entire villages had stopped breathing. Dalol creates colors in an environment that may exceed the limits of life. Blue sulfur flames burn inside the crater of Kawa-Ijen. Giant crystals wait inside a chamber too hot for the unprotected human body. Pobelia carries the memory of quarantine, illness, and isolation. 2,000 preserved bodies stand beneath the streets of Palermo. Unexploded weapons remain beneath the forests of France. Volcanic gases gather silently inside Kamchatka's Valley of Death. And Lake Nyos once released an invisible cloud over sleeping villages. These places are separated by oceans, borders, languages, and history, but they share one disturbing truth. Danger does not always look dangerous. A turquoise lake may contain powerful acid. A colorful mineral pool may hide unstable ground. A green forest may conceal explosives. A quiet valley may be filled with air that cannot support life. And a peaceful lake may hold enough gas to destroy every living thing in its path. Human beings survive by recognizing patterns. Dark clouds suggest a storm. Smoke suggests fire. A growl suggests a predator. But the most frightening threats are often the ones that do not match the patterns we understand. They remain invisible, silent, buried, or disguised as beauty. That is why places like these attract us. They force us to question what we see. They remind us that our senses are limited. And they reveal that the world beneath our feet is far more active than it appears. But curiosity must never become carelessness. Some of these locations contain toxic gases, extreme heat, unstable structures, active volcanic systems, dangerous chemicals, or unexploded weapons. They are not challenges waiting to be conquered. They should not be entered without permission, expert guidance, and proper equipment. The goal is not to prove that fear can be ignored. Fear exists for a reason. It tells us to stop, to observe, to understand before moving forward. There are still thousands of places on Earth that remain unfamiliar to most people. Caves that have never been fully explored. Volcanic systems still being studied. Abandoned structures collapsing behind locked gates. Deep lakes hiding chemical secrets. Forests covering the physical remains of wars. Some of those places will eventually become safe. Others may remain dangerous for centuries. And some threats may still be waiting to be discovered. So, the next time you see a beautiful lake, a silent forest, or a colorful landscape, remember this. The world does not always reveal what it is hiding. Sometimes the greatest danger produces no sound. Sometimes it leaves no shadow. And sometimes it is already surrounding you with every breath you take. This has been Beyond the Last Map, where every destination has a story, and some stories are best heard